Yes, hello and welcome to Just Africa on SOUQ News Television. Here we explore the people, ideas, and movements that are shaping our continent's future. We break down trends, spotlight opportunities, and tell the business stories differently. I am Umevi Idolor, and I will not be doing this alone. I have Emmanuel Amolo in the studio. Hello,
right person on TV, just like that. Because every time we're together, we're always beginning with smiles. Even though we don't have money, sometimes we still smile.
Yeah.
How are you doing, baby? It's Thursday. I'm literally wrapping up the week. The week started on a high because COP30 has been on everybody's conversation. We're talking about climate now, how to get the climate better. And yeah, we had conversation with different people there in Brazil where COP30 is happening. And the feedback we are getting feels like the change that we hope to see is still in front. That is I still had a conversation with somebody from there earlier today, and the man was like, these people are not hearing the cries that we are having. Especially we in Africa here. They are not listening to us. They don't seem to understand the gravity of what we are even asking for.
Yeah.
We had to even, our guest, I think on Tuesday, we had to even ask him, are you sure we're not going to begin to employ other tactics beyond dialogue?
Yeah.
They said they're going to do protests and all, but beyond this was because 2032 already been bookmarked for COP32. 2032, yes, that's for Ethiopia, where this conversation is going to be had again about climate. I'll be having climate conversations since. And in my head, I'm like, I hope we're not going to be just doing long talk, because we want to be seeing action. We're going to be climate action now. Hopefully, our guests today will help us understand what the young people are also doing.
Exactly. So today we'll be looking at how African youth are creating awareness on climate change actions, just as Amula said. Across Africa, young people are not waiting for tomorrow. We're not waiting. They're taking charge today. They're planting trees, creating clean energy solutions, leading digital campaigns, and even influencing government policies. But let's be honest, the challenges are real, from droughts and floods destroying livelihoods, to food insecurity and heat waves affecting everyday life. Africans are feeling the heat more than most. So, how can youth advocacy turn awareness into real climate action? What kind of support do young people need to make their voices count at the policy level? Right now you have to stay with us because the climate conversation isn't just about science, it's about our survival. You know what I'm saying? We'll have to go on this quick break because when we come back, we'll be introducing our guests. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back to Just Africa on SOUQ News Television. Please do well to follow us on all our social media platforms at SOUQ News TV. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, and of course, some of your comments will be read during the live show. So today we are looking at the topic, Africa's advocacy, youth as frontline voices for climate change. And joining us to have this conversation is Miss Perfect. I hope her title is actually Miss Animi Jondik. Perfect Animi is an eco-feminist and campaign strategist whose work with the Rooted Rising initiative has amplified frontline stories from the Niger Delta to global platforms. As a fellow of the Heinrich Böll Stiftung Green Academy and Homer's School of Ecology, she embodies the new generation of activists, merging strategy, art, and storytelling to demand a fossil-free, gender-just future. And I hope that she's going to give us a whole lot, going to open this conversation
I do believe that. As only somebody who is rooted, she's rooted in the fight, especially from the Niger Delta.
Hello, Perfect. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Emmanuel. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Emmanuel. What's your name? I think I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay, yes. I am Omevi Idolo. How are you today?
Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too. Welcome to the show. Okay, so first,
Thank you so much.
we want to delve into this conversation, but you describe yourself as an eco-feminist. I want everyone to understand what that means, and campaign strategist. So what personal experiences led you to connect environmental justice with gender equality?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Emmanuel, for having me on the show. Thank you so much. I still don't get the name. I'm really sorry about that.
Okay.
Well, I call myself an eco-feminist because I realized that as an environmental rights advocate, I realized that the impacts of the climate crisis that we are actually shouting about is affecting women more than it's affecting the other gender. And that is why, in as much as we try as much as possible to, campaign for the environment to be a better place, we have to also not forget that women are greatly impacted by the issues that the climate crisis have caused. We're talking about water scarcity. We're talking about food security, which we know that women are intrinsically, connected with. So women have to fend for their families in terms of food. They have to gather water. They have to, cater for the health of their children, ensure that their kids are in school. And these are things that the climate crisis, especially in frontline communities, have made them to be disadvantaged of. And that is why I try to connect the link between environmental advocacy and gender advocacy, because we cannot have a good environment, we cannot have a just environment if we don't have gender equity and gender justice for women. And of course, we are going to be adding those with disability in that circle as well.
Okay.
So when you talk about leading from the front lines, I mean, the challenges that Niger Delta has is both environmental and social. How do you marry the two?
So we all know that the Niger Delta is one of the most deadly ecosystems in the world. This is because of years of reckless extractivism in terms of oil extraction. We know that when we talk about the climate crisis, right, we are talking about how our world has become very, very warm. And this is because of decades of being locked into the fossil fuel extraction structure, right? So this is our form of energy, but it's so unfortunate that even as much as the multinationals, understand that there will be a climate crisis associated with fossil fuel extraction, they did nothing about that. What they did rather was to, buckle those research and push forward to extract oil. And this has made Niger Delta communities disadvantaged. If you go to Ogoni community, for instance, women are unable to farm, and this is because oil have been spilling on their farmland. I mean, communities that are not even actively extracting oil are still suffering from decades of oil extraction, in as much as oil companies have abandoned their oil wells. They abandoned them, they did not decommission them, and they have left these communities. But women have had to suffer the spills from those oil well heads that are still leaking. And also, the fishes are dying. I mean, these are the stories that we tell. A lot of people just think we just made them up, but they are lived realities of people. If you go to communities like Otuabani, Rumekpe, you see the gas flare. We have over 70 gas flare stands in the Niger Delta. I mean, they are releasing toxic pollutants into the air. We're talking about nitrogen gas, sulfur gas, carbon dioxide that is very, very popular. And it's actually children and everybody in the Niger Delta. So that is why when we say we are leading from the front line, we're actually not just advocates, we're actually living the lived experiences, the existential crisis of the climate impact.
Yes, why Niger Delta? Your focus is Niger Delta. Everything you've done so far. I know you might have delved into some other areas, but why Niger Delta? Are you from Bayelsa, Delta State, Port Harcourt, or why Niger Delta?
Okay, so I chose Niger Delta because I am from River State, Nigeria, Andoni precisely, and I have lived with myself, so that is why. But I don't just walk around Niger Delta, please.
Oh yeah, I did follow some of your work on social media, and I do agree. I was even going to ask you immediately, how has the SOUQ problem been? Because once upon a time, that's the challenge many of you had: the air turning black even when it is supposed to be daytime. And of course, respiratory challenges that people have to face. And I like the fact that it's young people that are pushing some of this advocacy. However, have there been pushback from some of the advocacy that you guys have tried to, and awareness that people have tried to create?
Yes, of course, there's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of voices of resistance, voices of acceptance as well. As young people, a lot of people make you feel like you don't even understand what you're fighting for. So take for example, you say let's end oil extraction, and then as someone is asking you, if we end fossil fuel extraction, then what are we going to be using to fly our planes? What are we going to be using to transport? If I you that is talking, say you entered a plane to this meeting the other day. In the kind of advocacy that we do. And as young people, a lot of people think we don't even have the experience, we don't have the agency, don't know history, but we've tried as much as possible to catch up with that by reading and interviewing those that have been here before us. And of course, there's also issue of finances, in terms of leading the initiatives and movements that we mobilize. So
Yeah,
these are the issues.
yes, I love the fact that you're very young and you're doing this, and as a woman, you are already lending your voice to what is happening. So how are women and girls disproportional affected by the climate crisis? And how can feminist perspective lead to better climate policies?
Yes, I love to always say that women are actually going to give us the solutions that we want. I mean, in as much as everybody said, they're not just saying because these are real. If you come to the Niger Delta communities, let me not even close myself in this Niger Delta realities. Even in the north where we have drought, water scarcity, you come to the Niger Delta. My grandmother used to be a crayfish monger, and then over time she lost that economy strength because of the spills in the river. I mean, she couldn't go down into deeper waters to catch a crayfish. These are one of the things that made her depressed and led to her death, as a matter of fact. Wow. Because women have been, they don't have this economic power. Girls in the Niger Delta are actually affected. We're talking about flood. So when there is a flood, if you go to the IDP, if you have about 100% of people there, the percentage of women you will see in the IDP is like 80. 80 is a little bit small. Let's say 90 to 10. I mean, we're talking about the gender ratio now. Yeah. And then if you have a lot of young girls there, we are having a menstrual issue. So you're in that kind of environment where there is no security, where there is no good hygiene, where there is no privacy. So you start thinking about the menstrual health of young girls. You start thinking about pregnant women. You start thinking about women who don't even have money. And then there is food. You have to cater for your child. You need to, there's a whole lot of issue around the climate crisis. And the Niger Delta is very specific to us because one of the big factors of these issues are actually oil spills and gas floods. I mean, children have come down with scabies, rashes on their body. Recently, there has been a report by both END and Kepekete Women Development where it has been reported that women have hydrocarbons in their blood. They have aromatic hydrocarbons in their blood as a result of prolonged inhalation of gas flare, prolonged contact with polluted water. So it's been discovered. And if you go to this kind of communities that we have these issues, there is no healthcare system to even cater for these health issues. Before they would even... So let's say there's an attack, before they would even get aid, they have to enter their vehicle and come down to Port Harcourt. These are the issues in frontline communities that is affecting women and girls. Yeah.
Okay, so perfect. It kind of like sounds interesting. So
because you actually look perfect anyway.
It's always interesting to call you perfect. So have there been, misconceptions as to some of the policies that you guys have advocated for? Because some people might think you guys don't even understand, just like you said, understand the problems that you're fighting for. But then again, how have you been able to breach that misunderstanding or misconceptions? Or even where they exist, can we know them so that we can even fight them?
Yes, so when you talk about misconceptions, right, I think multinationals, I've tried as much as possible to push propaganda that are not real, realities of the Niger people. I mean, we have greenwashing, we have charity washing. They come to frontline communities and they do activities that seem like they're actually aiding the community, but that is not the narrative. So when we tell our own narrative, because their own agenda has been so popular, their disinformation so popular, a lot of people would like to buy into it. So these are the issues that we try as much as possible to debunk, right? We also have that are in place. We're talking about the nationality determined contribution. We have false solutions like joint geoengineering, carbon market, carbon offset. These are the popular solutions to the climate crisis that the Niger Delta people, these are the popular policies, as a matter of fact. And we at the Niger Delta youth, we have come to understand that, we've come to dissect them, we've come to analyze them critically and realize that they are actually not the real solution. They're just band-aid solutions. They're just solutions that will just curtail the issue for a while. It doesn't actually speak to the root cause of this issue. And that is why when we push our own narrative and say, we think Niger Delta communities need to be cleaned, we think there needs to be restoration of our environment, a lot of people look at you and they say, how is that even possible? Of course, you never said that it's going to take a lifetime for the Niger Delta community to be cleaned. So a lifetime is, according to them, like 30 to 40 years. So why is 30 to 40 years a lifetime? The Niger Delta life expectancy is already 41 years. So if you're going to be cleaning entire environment for 30 to 40 years, that means that is a lifetime for the Niger Delta people. So these are the policies that we try to debunk. We have the PIA document that has no pre-informed, nothing of the communities adding to that document. It's just multinationals, writing stuff for community people, and these things doesn't actually favor them. If you go to the Act, you discover that there's a lot of contradictory sentences that don't actually affect communities positively and bring them in a good light. So these are the things that we try to debunk. But I mean, these misconceptions about the Niger Delta is something that we continue fighting. We try as much as possible to train the younger generations that come in, try to talk to community people, try to talk to using internet, social media to tell people that, okay, this is what it is and this is not what it is. That is as much as we able to debunk this false narrative and ensure that we are not misconceived in our own narrative.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Perfect. Because you are giving us perfect answers.
I try.
Yes. Okay, most times people think that, or some foreigners or internationals, governments, agencies and non-government agencies, they come around and tell you that, yes, we are working in this area to help keep the climate area clean, to keep the environment clean and all that. In your campaigns, how do you balance the fight against fossil fuels with the struggle for women's empowerment and community survival? Because this is a whole lot. Someone tells you we empower the women, we empower the people, we are doing this for the community, we are doing that for the community, but in the reason sometimes we don't see some of those things. So how do you balance that?
So if you talk about balance, I mean, it's quite unfortunate that poverty has been weaponized, especially for communities. It's double jeopardy for women. We are talking about struggling with gender issues, the structure of patriarchy, and then you're also trying to fight against oil impacted issues. So for us in the Niger Delta, for women in the Niger Delta, right, I think empowerment is just, I call it band-aid solutions. I mean, we've moved beyond charity. Our communities have been so destabilized. Our health have been so endangered that what we need is not charity. Those empowerments that they say they actually are giving to communities in terms of maybe buying sewing machine and buying a grinding machine, that is not what communities in Niger Delta actually want. What we want is total remediation and total restoration of our land. There is no way we are going to say this is justice, even if you're giving us all the cash in the world. This cannot be justice. Justice is when you repair the land. It is when you bring back it from what it used to be before you. Yes, so that is what justice is. So when you talk about community empowerment, like I said when I started, it's very unfortunate because a lot of community are still struggling with what they would eat, how they would cater to their children before even thinking about justice. So I think it's a deliberate attempt to impoverish communities so that they don't think of justice immediately. They think of what to eat before they think of justice. So it's quite an unfortunate situation.
Okay, so you said just now that justice is all about taking everything back to the way it were. Okay, let's take the Ogoni land as an instance, the water. no more fishing in that area and all that. Do you really think that these multinational companies that have spot that region, do you really think that there can be a form of purification of the water to the way it used to be back then, when the community people were able to go there to do their fishing, to do their farming? Do you really think we can actually go back to the state it was?
So according to UNEP, it's going to take 30 to 40 years to come back to that originality. That is why HyPrep is trying as much as possible to ensure that communities have clean, potable water. I mean, that is what they've been trying to do, and they've been able to achieve that in some of the communities. So in as much as it's going to take a long time, it's going to take decades for you to restore back drinking water, the river water. I mean, that is not possible for now, but supplying communities with potable water is actually not justice. It's a way of, I think it's a way of giving them what belongs to them. But that is not justice in the sense that we see it. I mean, from our school of thought and theory. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I do appreciate the fact that efforts are being made. And I want to guess, how long have you been doing this advocacy for?
Okay, I started back then I started in 2018 as a gender rights advocate. I was still in school at the time. And then I think officially it was 2022. That's when I started working on
3 years.
environment.
Have any of your advocacies recorded any success?
Yeah.
I mean, we want to hear success stories, because look, we know it is terrible as it is. Only you cannot do so much. But I mean, in collaboration with people, we want to hear success stories, even if it is small. Small wins are still wins.
Okay, yeah. So I worked with the Center for Social Studies and Development. It's called With the People for 3 years and 6 months. And while I was working, we tried as much as possible to, organize meetings, community meetings. We try as much as possible to challenge the PIA as much as we can, just so that people, it can be amended, because most of the act there does not actually, it's not actually for the good of communities. So I think that is one of our milestones, although we've not been able to achieve that, but processes are in place. And then we are also able to halt the divestment move for a while. We cannot do as much as the government can do. There is no political will, but in our part, we've been able to do that. And also, we've been able to educate and also mobilize community people to take actions by themselves. So it's not always CSOs, doing the talk, protesting. So we have people now from the front line who understand the structure of multinationals. They understand their rights in the global level, and then they understand how to actually carry out litigation. So those are the milestones that we've been able to accomplish. And then for the stories that we tell at Truthers Writing, I mean, we use them for intergenerational learning, for wellness, wellness campaigns and engagements, and then also to mobilize grassroots people to take action.
Okay, so one of your strategies, perfect, is arts and storytelling in your activism. That's what you use. So why is storytelling such a powerful tool in environmental advocacy? Because most time when you want to talk about story, people think you have to be, it has to be like folklore or folk tales and the likes. But here we're talking about science, we're talking about environment. Yet you're bringing in art, you're bringing in storytelling. How does that work? Why is it so important in advocacy?
So it's very important because, first of all, storytelling is very integral in our lives. I mean, before you tell anybody anything, before people move to advocacy, there must be a story behind it. I mean, there's always a narrative in our everyday life, in marketing, in church, in religion. We are told the stories of David. That's what made us believe. I mean, there's only stories that can help you to track what has been the history and what the future is going to be. That is why we deploy storytelling as a very powerful tool. And this is because when you tell stories, right, people will tend to just read, voluminous books, and they get too tired. They're like, oh my God, when am I going to finish this text? It's so, and the jargons here are just too much. We try as much as possible to
yeah.
Yeah, we try as much as possible to simplify them so that you understand them. So if you go to our divestment video, you understand better what the divestment move look like instead of reading newspapers, reading mainstream media and you're overwhelmed. I used to be very overwhelmed myself, but I got to understand these things so much using stories. So I think story is a very important factor in terms of education, in terms of awareness, highlighting community struggles. I think that's the only mode we can use. And then, of course, children need to understand these things as well. So we try as much as possible acts that can attract children, because in as much as we are talking, we are not going to get the change that we are fighting for now. It might not even be in our lifetime, but at least we were able to add to the campaigns and all of that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we're talking about community, children, the acceptance of your advocacy. At what level would you say that, yes, these people are being supportive? Are you just telling them or just giving them, creating this awareness for them to just, or in a passive way, or it is something they have come to accept and they are giving in their full support?
Are you talking about community people?
Yes, community.
Yes, so over the years, I've seen communities actively involved in activism, not just as community people, also as advocates, right? So yeah, we're not just doing something for them, we're actually trying to let them understand the impact of oil spills, because most of them don't even understand. And over the years, they've been able to absorb that, they've been able to unlearn what they know, and they're actually even accessing grants for themselves and doing the work by themselves. So yes, we're not just speaking for, we are speaking with them, and they are working with us as well.
Okay, so women now, because most times culture is one of the hindrances to women's participation when it comes to advocacy. That's why I appreciated you at the beginning of the show, saying a young person, a young woman, lending her voice for a cause. It's something beautiful. But coming back to the community now, how much involvement would you say that women are really into it? Do they buy into this dream? Do they buy into this cause at all?
Yes, they do. We just held our African Climate Women Assembly, held in Port Harcourt by the Quebec Women Development and Resources Center. And since I joined the advocacy space, I've seen that over the years that women have been actively involved in this thing. I know we have a long-standing structure of patriarchy, that actually keeps women at home, but I think these women have been able to understand that they cannot be limited by cultural norms and structures, and they've evolved over the years. They are taking up agroecology. They've been doing a lot of things that are climate related, and it's been a good ride. They've been able to achieve one or two things. I've seen women who have actually come together to organize protests. I mean, community women. I've seen them not being hindered by what they think is the cultural norm or the societal standard of what women should be. So yes, women have been thriving in this field.
All right, perfect. I do know that there's something called cultural acceptance, right? And then we're talking culture now. Do you do your advocacies in local languages or I don't know. I wanted to just make one general ask whether we use pidgin English generally in everywhere. It's very, very common, which I just made it a national language. But what kind of languages do you use to push some of this? Because if you're using English, and many people are not so learned, they've really got difficulty in communication.
Yeah, so if you go into the rooms where we speak to women, if you go to communities with us, we try as much as possible to communicate in their own language.
Okay.
So in as much as we have people that can translate what we have said. Okay. And then for the videos I do, if a woman is speaking in pidgin, like the recent one we did yesterday, of course there's a translation for Indigo. I don't have to alter our original language or try to speak for her because she's used.
Okay. Then again, I want us to just dive straight to COP30 because everybody's been following. It's like the general conversation now everybody's talking about. Did you follow Nigeria and Africa's, by extension, what they hope to get out of COP30?
Okay, so I've listened to a lot of civil societies. I've read their demands. A lot of them have been, because I think the COP for this year is actually going to be stretching on adaptation funds, loss and damage funds, and how to make this funds very accessible, especially to local communities. So I think from our prior conversation before the COP, there have been a lot of weight on how communities can actually access this fund by themselves, right? And put things in place for themselves. So I think the conversation that the Africans, people from rural communities are going to be for at the COP is actually the funds for reparations, for adaptation, for damage. It is economical or non-economical damages.
Okay, so having worked with international organizations, international platforms like the Heinrich Böll Stiftung Green Academy, what lessons have you learned about bringing African grassroots voices to global climate themes?
So I need to clarify that I was just a fellow, but I learned a lot with them because it's very inclusive. They have a place for respect for everyone's language, everyone's culture, everyone's value. There's this high respect, and I think that is what we are lagging in Nigeria. I mean, we have government that does not even respect communities. They don't even pay attention to the human rights valuation of communities. Communities have had to live undignified because of the climate crisis. So I think that for the, relating it to the global, sorry, I'm trying to reiterate the question. I don't
Yes,
remember.
I was asking the lessons you have learned, having worked with those people. What lesson do you think we can learn from you that have worked with them on the global stage?
Okay, so I think the lessons is that every person, every individual deserves the right to live with dignity. It's very important because if you are going to displace people, if you're going to be having forced immigration for communities, that is not a human rights advantage to those people. Those people are actually violated, as a matter of fact, and women are now exposed to gender-based violence because of those issues. So I think that the Niger Delta should recognize that it is important for people to live with dignity and respect, and also, respect people's rights. You don't just encroach into people's communities and take their things by force. In terms of multinationals, engaging communities' land, farmland, running pipelines everywhere. If you go to places like Okrika, you will see pipelines in front of people's houses. I mean, that is a lot of disrespect, to communities.
Well, okay, so we're talking about global stage, talking about international bodies now. Do you feel that global environmental movements do they truly listen to African stories, or are we just fighting to be heard? Because some of those people that are causing this climate problem in our locality, in our areas, they are not Nigerians, they are international companies. So do you really think that they are listening to us, or we're just making noise?
Yeah, so it's very unfortunate that even the conference of parties that is going on now, the COP, is being, what's the word now? It has been inherently unequal, right? The process has not been great. We have the global south, which are the biggest polluters of the world, being, at the helms of affairs in terms of power negotiations. So Africa sitting at those tables is like, okay, this is what we have for you. This is what you can get. Okay, it is now for you to now start bargaining. So it's like they have the horns of power, their words are gods and all of that. So I think African stories have actually not been regarded as something that can actually influence global policies. People, the global view of Africa has always been the same. I mean, Africa has a lot of perspective, but it's quite unfortunate that the climate issues actually, putting us at the edge of being vulnerable. And of course, the global platform is actually taking advantage of that. They're actually not hearing us, because if you're hearing us, you cannot keep on giving us policies that do not actually address this issue from the roots. You cannot keep on, funding lobbyists, funding false solutions, funding agendas that are not actually affecting the issues as it may be. I mean, we're talking about what is carbon market, what is carbon offset. You're saying that there should be gas flaring as long as multinationals are able to they're able to invest in other green projects. So take for example, you can actually continue flaring gas if you're able to reserve the land in Akwa Ibom. You can flare gas in River State. How is that a solution to the climate crisis? But these are the things that we are seeing. Talking gestures to this thing, band-aid solutions. I think they don't listen. They're not even ready to listen in the next decade because, I mean, if you keep on dishing this kind of policy that do not address anything, I'm sorry, they're just trying to tick boxes. They're actually not.
Okay. So I mean, you just literally threw me to the next question. The voices are being heard, right? We are even trying as young people. We have visibility. We're using social media. We're using most of our skits and movies, our content essentially, to make the noise. So they are hearing us. But the policy that is supposed to now match it seems to be growing wider and wider. Why do you think the gap exists and is still growing wide? And from what you said, it looks like it's not going to shrink anytime soon. What are the hindrances?
See, the thing is, there's no political will. That's what, before even going to the global platform, I think we should talk about our government in Nigeria because there's no way to encourage and do what they want to do without having access through who is in power. So I think our government do not have any political will to actually, curtail these issues because you cannot even be talking about reopening oil extraction in Ogoni land when IPREP is trying to clean the land. Who does that?
Like it's contradictory.
Trying to mop the floor. It doesn't work that way. So when you look at decisions, their acts, their legislations, you understand that these people are not even ready to help communities. They are just trying to tick boxes. They're just, I mean.
So what do we need to do in this case? If the government of Nigeria or let's say international bodies are not making the right policies, I believe that Nigerian government is supposed to make policies. I'm taking it down to Nigeria now. Make policies that should protect their people. Do you think Nigeria is also not doing enough?
Yes, I think so. We have policies, great policies that is supposed to protect the environment, but the implementation has been a problem. We have the energy transition plan. If you go through wonderful documents, but you can't have a plan and then you're saying something else. That's what
I'm sorry to cut you, but perfect. But then again, this is the problem. We already have fantastic policies. What are we going to do in COP 30?
Sorry?
What then are we going to do in COP 30? If the policies are here, it is just implementation. So what are you going to ask for in COP 30?
Exactly. So we go to COP 30 to find out what is coming to Nigeria, to Africa. I think that's just, I'm sorry to project my fears around the COP to the fore, but I think that our leaders just go to COP 30 to mark tick boxes and also get to understand the share that is coming to Africa and Nigeria in terms of finances.
I don't know. Every time we talk about things like climate, ecology, and sometimes they are like low-hanging fruits like tree planting that could help with flooding, right? But we know that the major causes of environmental problems are not necessarily flooding per se. I think one of the major ones is how we degraded the environment, especially in terms of finding crude, right? And then environmental mining and stuff. These are the issues. How are we not having the conversations towards that side? Because look, COP28, we all remember COP28 where we were carrying celebrities to the place. And it became a very large talking point on social media. I didn't want to mention, I almost spilled and mentioned somebody's name, but it's fine. But imagine, it's not like we're doing window dressing. The problems are ours, like in Nigeria. How come we are not looking for Nigerian solutions and waiting for a COP to give us a policy?
Because most of the problem we have is coming from the global north, from multinationals, and it's a global issue. Because most times when our legal system cannot address issues, right, so we go for the global court. So we are talking about Ogale and Pili that was in court for over 10 years in the UK, just to work on an issue that has been there, around the skills. So when we say we are going to the COP, we actually it's just a responsibility because Nigerians are actually a signatory to the nationality determined contribution, which is a worldwide document that we have actually said, okay, yes, we are going to sign on this, we are going to be protecting our environment, we are going to be cutting on emissions, we are going to be doing this. So of course they have to go there and be accountable to what they signed to. Yeah, so we have to be in the COP. It's very important. And of course, going to the COP also, we have the blue zone, we have the green zone, we have the campaigners, we have the observers. So if community people are able to be funded to the COP, of course they'll be there shouting that we need reparations, we need to stop oil extraction so that it keeps sounding in the heads of the negotiators there, and then maybe it could influence their policies and the decisions they're about to take.
Okay, so you said these multinationals don't listen to us, and the policies are not favorable to the community. And some of that things you mentioned, that even in the next decades, you're not seeing some of these policies be implemented. So where is the hope? What gives you hope when things seem overwhelming right now?
Yes, so I think a lot of people do ask this question. They will ask you, what is the hope? What are you even doing? What are you fighting for? I feel like if we're not even talking, things would have been worse than this. I always say it. I mean, we have no communities talking, we have no people talking. As a matter of fact, our communities would just be wastelands. You know, you would not even find anybody. Just our ancestral lands will no longer be ours. They could even take a lot of people from the communities and say, go and look for where. I mean, we have stories like that in Ogoni where a lot of people have migrated to, is it Togo? Or Cameroon, and they are even too traumatized to come back to their own communities because of the conflicts that was associated with oil extraction. So imagine we didn't have Sken Sarawiwa, we didn't have the Nine, we didn't have, Dr. Nimo Basi, Ken Henshaw, a lot of these people that are fighting for our environment and our communities. It would have been worse. So when I do the work I do, I'm not doing it because I'm expecting an immediate solution. I believe that tomorrow will be better. The worst system to fight is actually where someone is benefiting from. That is the worst system to fight.
Oh, yes.
I believe that there will be a structural change, which we are working on. We're working on the mindsets of the people that are coming up because the future belongs to the youth. So we are trying to work on our that when we get into government, we'll do better and make more decisions for our communities.
Wow. I am impressed. I mean, I know I had to go dig into your past works, and I saw the engagement with a lot of young people. Just tell us, what has been the feedback from young people that you've interacted with since you started this your advocacy? Because, of course, you have a dream, right? How much has it resonated to the young people that you interact with?
Yes, so it's very difficult, first of all, because in Nigeria, yes, in Nigeria, we have a lot of people that wanted to be engineers, they want to work in oil companies, and then you're not telling them that, these oil companies are actually destroying our land. And it is not just for communities people, because what people don't understand is pollution is transboundary. Even if it's happening in Ogoni land, do not say because you're living in Port Harcourt, it cannot affect you. The air, the water. So I even tell people that even as much as High Prep is trying to clean Ogoni land, if they don't clean the entire Niger Delta, we cannot say we've gotten justice or ecological cleanup because the water from Andoni is flowing through the Ogoni River, the water from Ogale, from Bile. So if you're cleaning Ogoni water, what about the one that is coming from another polluted river? So when you try to talk to Nigerian youth and tell them, okay, this is how to go about this, or this is what is happening. I mean, there's a lot of doubt. But when they start seeing these realities, when you take them to communities and they see these realities by themselves, they now have a change of prospect. I was having very big issue with somebody, she's my age. She has always been fighting me when it comes to climate smart agriculture and agroecology. I mean, she doesn't want to understand it. She doesn't accept it. But there was a time I took her to the School of Ecology of Home Earth, and then she went there and she heard for herself that climate smart agriculture is not the same thing as agroecology. And then she's actually the one campaigning against climate smart agriculture, as a matter of fact. So I think that it takes time. Like me, it actually took time for me to start campaigning against end fossil fuel extraction, because there's a lot of questions. What is now going to be the new form of energy? I mean, because if you talk about any kind of energy that is coming now, you discover that we are still talking about extractivism. We are still going to extract something from people's communities. People are still going to the water of those raw materials to even make solar. So like the cycle keeps perpetuating, and so these are very, very difficult to now translate into the next person. But when the people understand the stories from communities, so when you tell them, okay, this is what is happening in this community, come, let's go and look at it, there is no doubt they would actually succumb and actually be advocates themselves.
Oh, that's beautiful. So if you could, I just want to ask, if you could redesign Africa's climate advocacy approach, what would you prioritize? Is it policy change, is it grassroots mobilization, or public awareness?
Before you answer, I'm sorry, Perfect. I'm sorry. Before you answer that, I wanted to add to it. Think about it. If you were given a chance to sit with the president right now, what would you tell him?
I think it's all.
I'm putting you on the spot. If you have a chance to sit with the president right now, what would you tell him? Answer that in tandem with what she asked.
Okay, yes. So personally, I think that we should actually move according to the pace of the world. So the world is actually transforming from whatever it is into technology. But it's very unfortunate that even in Nigeria, we don't even have data to even access the internet, let alone technology. So I think that the government should invest in technology for youth and also invest in green energy transition in terms of education, in terms of putting this green knowledge into our curriculum. I mean, students should start understanding it from secondary school. It's not about ozone layer depletion. We've been hearing ozone layer depletion. I think we should move from that to start talking about the real issues, affecting communities in terms of oil spills, gas flood. They should actually understand that. And then I think we should also bring back palm oil. Palm oil, because I mean, from history, palm oil was our biggest export. I wonder why it's no longer our biggest. Yeah, we could bring back palm oil production, and of course, Nigeria can even do well in terms of owning our own production instead of always exporting and all of that. Yeah, so I think that is what I would say. Education for young people, bringing back oil palm production, and also forgetting that one I even said.
Okay, no, but that was beautiful. So I want you to give a message what message rather would you like to live with young African women watching right now? There are so many young ladies, women that want to do what you are doing now. Those who want to fight for the planet but don't know where to begin. What message would you want to leave with them?
Yes, I'd like to say start with your phone, because we're in a digital age, as a matter of fact. Start with your phone. Instead of dragging a hair vendor on social media, you should start dragging multinationals, requesting for for justice for communities. And you don't need to belong. Of course, you need the training. You need to volunteer in organizations that are actually doing the work. Volunteer for campaigns. In those days when I started, I remember it's just a social media page. Let's come out on black and white and come and shout about gender violence, and then I'll come out. I don't even know anybody there. So I think young women should start using their phone to say something. It doesn't have to be official. You don't need to be, you don't need to have a career in climate activism before you do that. And then you could also volunteer with organizations. You could also ask for mentorship from people online. A lot of people have reached out to me, and I'm actually supplying to them what to read and what they can use to enrich their knowledge around the climate crisis and the solutions. And also, I also think that young women should have this mindset that we are at a unique intersection between being witnesses and also being the warriors, because we're witnessing this climate. These are our existential realities, right? Nobody is telling us that the climate crisis, the bomb is going to blow in the next 20 years. In fact, the bomb has actually exploded and our children are at stake. My mother is not giving birth anymore. Your mother is not giving birth anymore. I'm the one to bear the next generation. So what kind of community, what kind of environment am I going to be living that I'm going to be bequeathing to my children? I mean, I have to keep it safe as much as I can. At least when my child comes, my child will be able to see my videos and know, oh, my mother actually tried for me. She actually said something so that I can live in a better world. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Perfect. That was a beautiful message to live for.
Yeah, it's a speech.
For
it's like a presidential speech.
That's a beautiful message for women. You know, it's a beautiful thing, really, to have a young lady like you doing what you're doing right now. You understand? So we say a very big thank you to you. But just before we let you go, I want to ask, what is the meaning of anime?
Oh, you're actually the first person calling me anime. A lot of people don't call me anime. Anime means I know. So that's my grandmother's name.
Okay.
Oh,
God rest us.
okay. So you decided to take part of her name?
Sorry?
I said you decided to take her name or name yourself after her.
No. My parents named me after her. So that's
our
culture.
So it's there, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Perfect. Anime John Dick. She is an eco-feminist and campaign strategist whose work with the Rooted Rising Initiative has amplified frontline stories from the Niger Delta, to global platforms. As fellow of the Heinrich Ball Stiftung Green Academy and Homer School of what again? I'm trying to get the full name correctly so I do not mix it up. A very big thank you to you, Perfect, for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Manuel.